Nope. Just put the milk to that line. 1 scoop on top. Push latte.
I'm gonna wait to have
and latte.
I'm gonna wait to have my hot cocoa. Are you recording?
I'm broadcasting.
To who?
To your future selves.
Okay. It was very necessary. Crap walk with me, brother.
My expectation is that the only people that are ever watch these recordings will be you guys. But I thought everyone was going to be in here and be ready to go. I set it to go at 7:20. Ellie usually tunes out. But since you had fire, I wanted to put the fire in the show. But
And the tiny green dinosaur.
Since it's broadcasting, don't do anything that you don't want permanently on YouTube.
Become famous dancer. Come on, YouTube. How dare you?
If anybody ever gets in here, then today's reading will be chapter 6, titled The Old Forest, from my fancy 50th anniversary edition of The Lord of the Rings, which apparently my camera's inverted. We'll find out later if that's truly the case. I should probably try to check that setting. Well, we've been online for 1 minute and 50 seconds already. Did I turn it off?
Turn it off and do it.
Or start without
Abby can't put chickens away so it's bad. There she is. Okay.
What are you, my shadow? You're really bad shadow. All 3 birds, including 3 birds.
Enjoy this picture while it lasts. Judah, shorter than Becca.
I like. What's this? Ow.
Don't knock your sister out.
Hold still.
A skull to the chin is very painful, I kind of.
You're my nose.
Come sit down. Yeah. About 3 minutes ago.
You want me to go show her?
On the top, push latte. On the bottom, push latte.
So this is one of the problems with family reading time, is all the other things that get inserted on top of family reading time. You'll find it difficult to have a regular scheduled family reading time, especially as the kids get older.
It's already 7:30. It's like an hour long. 3 days.
When last we left our heroes, they were going to bed after getting ready for their trip.
Why is the wood on fire?
Our real fire is going to be dead before we even start reading.
Yeah. I'm gonna go poke it.
When he starts reading, if the fire's not going, don't ask questions about it. Let's just enjoy the story.
Oh.
Your wood did start though.
Hmm?
Your wood did start fire.
How is under? I'm on fire. Those look really cool, though. Those look really cool.
Nope, not from that seat. You'd have to get all the way up by the dog's head in order to get into the shop. Unless I turn this. If I turn it away from the fire.
No, keep it in the fire. I can say hi.
Why isn't the wood? Is the wood wet? Mom, is the wood wet?
No, it's not.
The wood is burning.
It's amazingly.
So why are we waiting for him?
Not like burning.
I'd like to hear it help it for with
It's on fire, but it's not.
Have a
Like,
seat.
with everyone.
No.
big
I
log.
think Patty's
What
gonna
is
sit
that?
there.
Are you gonna sit here?
I guess you can sit there. You got there first.
Embers.
Okay, guys. We've been rolling for 7 minutes already, and we have not yet started reading.
Okay.
So big. You wouldn't.
Started hello.
All right, it's time for quiet and paying attention to the story.
We have a minute.
Yes, the other girls are not going to.
Okay.
Judith, you're filling my house with a smell of smoke. Frodo woke suddenly. It was still dark in the room. Mary was standing there with a candle in one hand, banging on the door with the other. All right, what is it? Said Frodo, still shaken and bewildered. What is it? Cried Mary. It is time to get up. It is 4:30 and very foggy. Come on, Sam's already getting breakfast ready. Even Pippin is up. I am just going to saddle the ponies and fetch the one that's going to be our baggage carrier. Wake that sluggard Fatty. At least he must be up and see us off. Soon after 6 o'clock, the 5 hobbits were ready to start. Fatty Bolger was still yawning. They stole quietly out of the house. Mary went in front, leading a laden pony, and took his way along a path that went through a spinney behind the house. There's a word in this that I don't know. He went through a spinney behind the house. Who wants to look up the definition of spinny and find out what that word is? No, not right now. And then cut across several fields. The leaves of trees were glistening, and every twig was dripping. The grass was gray with cold dew. Everything was still, and faraway noises seemed near and clear. Fowl chattering in the yard, someone closing a door at a distant house. In their shed, they found the ponies, sturdy little beasts of the kind loved by hobbits, not speedy, but good for a long day's work. They mounted, and soon they were riding off into the mist, which seemed to open reluctantly before them and close forbiddingly behind them. And riding for about an hour, slowly, without talking, they saw the hedge looming suddenly ahead. It was tall and netted over with silver cobwebs. How are you going to get through this? Asked Fredegar. Follow me, said Mary, and you will see. He turned to the left along the hedge, and soon they came to a point where it bent inwards, running along the lip of a hollow. A cutting had been made at some distance from the hedge, and went sloping gently down into the ground. It had walls of brick at all sides, which rose steadily until suddenly they arched over and formed a tunnel, which dived deep under the hedge and came out in the hollow on the other side. Here Fatty Bolger halted. Goodbye, Frodo, he said. I wish you were not going into the forest. I only hope you'll not need rescuing before the day is out. But good luck to you today and every day. If there are no worse things ahead of us than the old forest, I shall be lucky, said Frodo. Tell Gandalf to hurry along the east road. We shall soon be back on it and going as fast as we can. Goodbye. Goodbye! Goodbye! They all cried, and rode down the slope and disappeared from Fredegar's sight into the tunnel. It was dark and damp. At the far end, it was closed by a gate of thick-set iron bars. Mary got down and unlocked the gate, and when they had passed through, he pushed it to again and shut it with a clang, and the lock clicked. The sound was ominous. "There," said Mary, "you've left the Shire, and are now outside, and on the edge of the old forest." "Are the stories about it true?" asked Pippin. "Well, I don't know what stories you mean," Mary answered. "If you mean the old bogey stories Fatty's nurses used to tell him, about goblins and wolves and things of that sort, I should say no. At any rate, I don't believe them. But the forest is queer. Everything in it is very much more alive, more aware of what is going on, so to speak, than things are in the Shire. And these trees do not like strangers. They watch you. They are usually content merely to watch you, as long as daylight lasts, and they don't do much. Occasionally, the most unfriendly ones may drop a branch, or stick a root out, or grasp at you with a long trailer. But at night, things can become most alarming, or so I am told. I've only once or twice been out here after dark, and then only near the hedge. I thought all the trees were whispering to each other, passing news and plots along in unintelligible language, and the branches swayed and groped without any wind. They do say the trees do actually move and can surround strangers and hem them in. In fact, long ago, they attacked the hedge and came and planted themselves right by it and leaned over it. But the hobbits came and cut down hundreds of trees and made a great bonfire in the forest and burned all the ground in a long strip east of the hedge. After that, the trees gave up their attack, but they became very unfriendly. There is still a wide bare space not far inside where the bonfire was made. "Is it only the trees that are dangerous?" asked Pippin. "Well, there are various queer things living deep in the forest and on the far side," said Mary. "Or at least I have heard so. But I have never seen any of them. But something makes paths. Whenever one comes inside, one finds open tracks, and they seem to shift and to change from time to time in a queer fashion. Not far from this tunnel, there is, or there was for a long time, the beginning of quite a broad path leading to the bonfire glade, and then, on more or less in our direction, east and a little north, that is the path which I am going to try to find." The hobbits now left the tunnel gate, and they rode across the wide hollow. On the far side was a faint path leading up to the floor of the forest, 100 yards and more beyond the hedge, but it vanished as soon as it brought them under the trees. Looking back, they could see the dark line of the hedge through the stems of the trees that were already thick about them. Looking ahead, they could see only tree trunks of immeasurable sizes and shapes, straight, bent, twisted, leaning, squat, slender, smooth, gnarled, branched, and all the stems were green or gray with moss and slimy, shaggy growths. Mary alone seemed fairly cheerful. "You had better lead on and find that path," Frodo said to him. "Don't let us lose one another, or forget which way the hedge lies." And they picked their way among the trees, and their ponies plodded along, carefully avoiding the many writhing, interlacing roots. There was no undergrowth. The ground was rising steadily, and as they went forward, it seemed that the trees became taller, darker, and thicker. There was no sound, except an occasional drip of moisture falling through the still leaves. For the moment, there was no whispering or movement among the branches, but they all got an uncomfortable feeling that they were being watched with disapproval, deepening to dislike and even enmity. The feeling steadily grew until they found themselves looking up quickly and glancing back over their shoulders as if they expected a sudden blow. There was, not as yet, any sign of a path, and the trees seemed constantly to bar their way. Pippin suddenly felt that he could not bear it any longer, and without warning let out a shout. Oi, oi, he cried. I'm not going to do anything. Just let me pass through, will you? The others halted, startled, but the cry fell as if muffled by a heavy curtain. There was no echo or answer, though the woods seemed to become more crowded and more watchful than before. I should not shout if I were you, said Mary. It does more harm than good. Frodo began to wonder if it were possible to find a way through, and if he had been right to make the others come into this abominable wood. Mary was looking from side to side and seemed already uncertain which way to go. Pippin noticed it. It hasn't taken you long to lose us, he said. But at that moment, Mary gave a whistle of relief and pointed ahead. Well, well, he said, these trees do shift. There's the bonfire glade in front of us, or I hope so, but the path to it seems to have moved away. The light grew clearer as they went forward. Suddenly, they came out of the trees and found themselves in a wide circular space. There was sky above them, blue and clear to their surprise, for down under the forest roof, they had not been able to see the sun rising in the morning and the lifting of the mist. The sun was not, however, high enough yet to shine down into the clearing, though its light was on the treetops. The leaves were all thicker and greener about the edges of this glade, enclosing it with an almost solid wall. No trees grew there, only rough grass and many tall plants, stocky and faded hemlocks and wood parsley and fireweed sending out its fluffy ashes, and rampant nettles and thistles. It was a dreary place, but it seemed as charming and cheerful as a garden after being in the close forest. The hobbits felt encouraged, and they looked up hopefully at the broadening daylight in the sky. At the far side of the glade, there was a break in the wall of trees and a clear path beyond. They could see it running on into the wood, wide in places and open above, although every now and then the trees grew in and overshadowed it with their dark boughs. Up this path they rode. They were still climbing gently, but now they were much quicker and with better heart, for it seemed to them that the forest had relented and was going to let them pass unhindered after all. But after a while, the air began to get hot and stuffy, and the trees grew close again on either side, and they could no longer see very far ahead. Now, stronger than ever, they felt again the ill will of the wood pressing in on them. So silent was it that the fall of the ponies' hooves, rustling on dead leaves and occasionally stumbling over hidden roots, seemed like thudding in their ears. Frodo tried to sing a song to encourage them, but his voice sank to a murmur. O wanderers in the shadowed land, despair not, for though dark they stand, all woods there must be end at last, and see the open sun go past. The setting sun, the rising sun, the day's end or the day begun, for east or west all woods must fail. Fail. Even as he said the word, his voice faded into silence.